You can also move that fucking pussy jungle thing behind
My
you.
little cat. I have two cat trees behind me. Thank you
Uh,
very much.
Here we go. Hey, adventurers. Welcome. I'm Chris.
And I'm Kayla.
Welcome to Let's Just Go podcast. Today we're talking about Kayla's most recent adventure to the great country of Mexico. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I went to Riviera Maya. So like not Cancun, but very close to Cancun.
And let's talk a little bit about that because people definitely, like we talk often that we're in the travel industry, and so when we're talking with folks, they don't understand that differential, right? And
Yeah.
so, one, Mexico is not a state. We'll start with it's a country.
What?
I know
You're
people
blowing my
are,
mind right now.
I know, right, right. And Cancun is in the state of Quintana Roo,
Mm-hmm.
and Riviera Maya is essentially everything. I mean, not exactly, but everything south of Cancun all the way down through Tulum, right
Yeah.
before you get to the different country of Belize. And so, people often like, I don't want to go to Mexico, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but really just having an idea that, Cancun is where the airport is, and then Riviera when Kayla's talking Riviera Maya, but um I freaking love Mexico.
Yeah. It's a good time. So fun fact, Chris and I, the first time I ever went to Mexico, this was my third trip to Mexico. My first trip was actually with Chris and his wife and some other friends
It was
and
a
my boyfriend.
cherry popping experience.
Yeah. It wasn't, what's funny is it wasn't Brian's first trip to Mexico. So my boyfriend had been to Mexico previously with his family,
Part of the
where
cartoon.
usually I'm the person taking him someplace for the first time, not the other way around. So this was my third trip. I actually stayed at the same place that Chris and I stayed at. What was that? 2 years ago? 3 years? When was that?
Yep. It was right. Yeah. 2021.
2021. Yeah. It was still COVID times. My gosh. Chris was able to get back to the United States with no problem on the trip that he and I went on. Brian and I, however, got stuck in Mexico City because they wouldn't accept our COVID tests to get back into the United States. So that was really a traumatizing experience. Yeah. That being said, we stayed at a place called the Fives Residences. And it's technically Playa del Carmen, right?
The Fives Beach.
The Fives Beach resident, right? There's like
There's a couple,
four.
three different resorts. So the
Yeah.
beach, there's one in the city, but it is in Playa del Carmen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's Oceanfront, which is literally like a high rise on the ocean it's a stunning resort. There's downtown, which is in downtown Playa del Carmen. And then beach residences is really what you think of when you think of an all-inclusive resort in Mexico. So it's sprawling. They've got tons of restaurants. They have a sort of technically adults only section with the caveat that it's actually residences. It's not timeshares. It's legitimately like condos that you're purchasing, and they have like a real estate agent on property. And that section is technically adults only. But if you own a residence and you have children, those children are allowed to stay in the residences because they sell up to 3 bedrooms, I believe, because we stayed in a 3-bedroom on our trip. So it was me and Brian and his sisters and one of his sister's partners. And we opted to do a 3-bedroom residence because it was just super easy for us. So the residences all have kitchens in them, which we didn't touch, and like a living room area, which was really nice. And then we all had like individual doors off to our own respective rooms and bathrooms. So it was like one door opened to 3 more doors. And then we also had like a rooftop area that had I don't want to call it a hot tub because that's false advertising and not what it was. But it had like what had been a hot tub at one point in time, but had been converted to just have a faucet that ran lukewarm water.
Mm.
Doesn't that sound super appealing?
No. In fact, actually, my sister was just there in a 3-bedroom presidential penthouse suite, and she said the same, that the hot tub wasn't really hot at all.
Yeah. It was also like, so the thing about November in Mexico, first of all, it's always hot in Mexico, no matter what. Um, but the weather was like not hot enough to where you want to get in cold water, but also like not cold enough where you're like, oh, it's relatively the same temperature. Let's just get in. So we didn't actually use it. We filled it all the way up and it took us hours to fill all the way up, which just felt like a waste of water. Um, Honestly, the whole experience was kind of disappointing. The last time that we were there, it wasn't as busy. It was really easy to get dining reservations, which I really appreciated. The food at the Fives is really good,
It is really good.
but we couldn't get reservations to any restaurants that like we wanted to dine at, which was really frustrating for us.
That is frustrating. Did you eat at the Thai place though?
We did eat at the Thai place.
Nice.
Yeah, we ate at the Thai place. We ate at a Mexican restaurant that actually didn't exist when you and I went. It was just like an empty building by the adults only section. And then we ate at the Mediterranean restaurant, which you had told me your sister said it was awful.
Yeah, but you
And
love it, right?
and we had like the best meal at the Mediterranean restaurant.
I was surprised when she shared that with me. I thought maybe it was a like just an off night, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Because I was also at the Fives Beach in over spring break, Easter week this year,
Oh yeah, yeah.
with a large group of a lot of families.
Children.
Yeah, yep, a lot of families at my teammates of my daughter's soccer team and their families and things. So I think there was like 28 of us total there. So it was fun and the food was great, but we ate there as well and didn't have an issue. So I think my sister had an off night, just a bad
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, it was really good. And that was also like the best server we had the whole night or the whole trip. Um, but I will say the buffets there are not good.
I
For
want
like comparison's sake,
well,
last year for Christmas, Brian and I also went to Riviera Maya and stayed at Xcaret Arte, which is like, what have you compared it to? You compared it to like what the Ritz of
yeah, it's definitely a higher level,
yeah.
right? And so it is it's a
It's a
luxury.
bougie ass experience, which
It's a
is who I am as a person.
yeah, you wouldn't know it by looking at you. The
Thank you so much.
uh
As I'm currently in a sweatshirt and yoga pants.
yeah, well, with cat jungle gyms behind you.
Yeah.
The no, definitely a luxury product,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think, it is hard to compare the Fives Beach
Oh
with Xcaret Arte because and Xcaret. So you can, I mean, you'll talk a little bit about the difference between them, but
yeah.
it is they're not the same. They're not apples to
No.
apples,
No.
and I think this is an important reminder to all of our adventurers, like you do often get what you pay for.
Oh, for
When
sure.
we're traveling, you try to save here and there, but you decide whether it's convenience or food or
Mhm.
luxury, but you get what you pay for. Period. End of story.
Yeah, and the reason, I don't know if this was the case for you, but the reason that we picked the Fives for this trip was because we knew we were working with specific budgets and we wanted to make sure that we were like getting the best bang for our buck, which I feel like we did. Like we got a good deal on the room. And we had a good time, but we all pretty much said like we wouldn't come back to this resort again. We would stay somewhere else next time. Um, but like the food is good. The drinks are not strong. They also charge you extra for any top shelf liquor. This is all at the Fives, by the way. Um, and it sort of felt, I don't know, not like we were being nickeled and dimed, but like it just felt like if we wanted to do things to elevate our experience, everything cost extra. To anything you wanted to do to elevate anything was like, all right, that's 100 US dollars. All right, that's 50 US dollars. And that was like a per person, or like
Ooh.
you go to the tequila bar, but all of their good tequilas are an upcharge, which it was
Right.
like, then why is it a tequila bar? What's the point?
Right. Is that the 19 something something?
I think it's like 1901 or something like that. Yeah, 1918. I don't remember what I'm sure it's a significant date in Mexican history that I don't know.
Which, though, for everybody listening, that is not uncommon in many, many, many all inclusives, right?
Mhm.
Where if you want that top shelf liquor included, you have to be part of the club level, or, different
Right.
resorts call it different things. So it's not uncommon, but it is always a little bit of a surprise, especially if you're looking for, an elevated experience.
Yeah. So the flip side of that is, again, last year, Brian and I stayed at Xcaret Arte, which, if you're looking for like a truly all inclusive experience, that's the way to do it. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Xcaret, which I think is most people, unless you've been to Riviera or Cancun.
Well,
Um,
actually, because every time in the local, community group, when someone asks about somewhere to go in Mexico, or somewhere to go with, active, preteens and
mhm.
teens, and where they want like that elevated experience. Often, a lot of times, people do recommend Xcaret, which I would be, hands down, that would be my
Oh yeah,
recommendation for sure.
yeah. So there's two. So Xcaret started as I think they call it an eco park. So it's essentially, they bought up property along the water and kept a lot of the like existing landscaping, and then created a park around it. So I haven't actually been to Xcaret Park. I've been to other parks of theirs.
I've been.
Yeah. So what all is at, like, what types of things are there to do at Xcaret Park?
I think the Xcaret Park is good if you're hitting that one day, right? Because so I guess we should pause and say that in when you stay at Xcaret, right, the hotel.
At
So
the
I think
hotels,
Kayla
yeah.
was starting to say there is a
Yeah.
Xcaret hotel, and then there's Xcaret Arte. And the difference, and she'll talk a little bit more about Xcaret Arte, but the difference there is that you have to be 16 and above to stay at Arte.
Yeah.
The regular Xcaret hotel can be for families. So it's pretty much adult only at Xcaret Arte.
Mhm.
But inclusive when you stay at either of those hotels is access to all of their adventure parks, um,
And tours.
and tours, right? So I think there's like
Mhm.
6 parks, right? And
I
maybe eight.
think so. I
Whoops.
think there's a total of like 11 different things you can participate in between tours and parks.
Okay, so that they're included, right? So
Yeah.
that's another part of the elevated price point, right? But
Mhm.
you're not really paying much, and then they help you get to these different destinations, and there's
Yep.
something for everybody. And Kayla will talk about some
Yeah.
of the ones she went to. But if you're into adventure, you can go ziplining. If you're into,
Mhm.
you have the kids and you want to do something where it's more like you feel small in a large, everything feels big, or all the different things. If um but at the Xcaret Park, I felt like that was a nice mix of culture, of
Yeah.
what, if you were trying to dive into Mexican culture, right? You had the cenotes. They did, there was a lot of things around, like spiritual and religious experiences that are important to the Mexican people
Oh yeah.
of that area. And then they had water activities because it is right on the water, right?
Yeah.
So I think you could do different water sports. You could just lounge. They have a spa inside there. They had animals that you could go and see, and we did a little boat tour through the one of the cenotes.
Oh,
People
that's
could
fun.
swim through a different one. Yeah, so lots of different options, dining venues that were there. So it
And there's
was
like a big show at the end of the day, right?
there is a big show. We did not see that,
That,
unfortunately.
honestly, so Brian has been and done, he did Xcaret with his family when he went years ago, and he really liked the show. I can't sit still for that long. It's like I think it's like 3 hours long, and it sounds really cool. I just don't think I could sit still for that long.
3 hours. Um, No, and you don't have to be staying at those
Right.
2 hotels to enjoy these adventure parks. You can pay a per diem price entry point to
They're
get
just
to these
expensive.
parks. They are not cheap. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So we actually,
you're looking at price points matching Disney entering Disney World
yeah.
for the day. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
we went to Xplor Park on this trip. So Xplor Park is like the main attraction there is zip lining. Like that's the thing that people come for. They have very long zip lining courses. You can zip line into water. Like there's one activity that is literally like you sit in a hammock that's attached to a zip line cord and just like glide into the water.
And you're like, but you slowly, right? Like your ass hits
Yeah.
the water and then it keeps going. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The park is also mostly underground, which is really interesting. So outside of doing the zip lines, you're mostly going to be in caves. So there's like a bunch of different water activities in caves. It's it's a park that's hard to explain or like see videos of. It's like if you're there, you understand. Like that's the only way to experience it is the only way to understand what's going on. That being said, I want to say it was like $170 a person for us to enter the park and have transportation from our hotel to the park. That being said, this company is a well-oiled machine. They've got their shit together. The bus was exactly on time. The person had her clipboard. She gave us wristbands. Like they have everything down to a T. Like people talk about Chick-fil-A and how when you go to Chick-fil-A and you like get in the drive-through line, like it's a very, very efficient line. And like that is what Xcaret is like as a company. Like they just are a well-oiled
I
machine.
felt like I kind of refer to it to people as like it's not exactly Disney, right? But it's the
Right.
Disney version. Of
Yeah.
it's in Mexico because of all the different parks that you can get to, and then exactly what you're saying, the experience you have when you're there
Yeah.
and getting there too, right? It is definitely very well planned and thought out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really it's just it's also like Disney in the way that you can go stay at an Xcaret hotel. So either Xcaret Mexico, which is the family hotel, or Xcaret Arte, and you can never really leave Xcaret property, like other than, like getting on a bus and going to a property, which is the same thing at Disney, right? Like you can stay in that Xcaret bubble in the same way that you can go to Disney World and stay in that Disney bubble, which is really nice because people can be apprehensive about going to Mexico and like what that looks like and be concerned about crime and whatever other fill in the blank things that people get scared about going to Mexico.
And I think we should talk about that for a second, right? Because we
Yeah,
talk to a lot of people who are interested in traveling, and that comes up so often. Not Mexico. I want to go to the Caribbean. I want to go to an all
right.
inclusive. Oh no. Well, I'm like, oh well, how about Mexico? And what do people say? I don't want to go to Mexico.
Yeah. I want to go to an all inclusive, but not don't take me to Mexico. I
And
don't want to go to
the thing with Mexico is there's so many all inclusives that the price point often is right for people's budget, right?
Yeah.
And so um, I think it hurts my heart because I first traveled to Mexico in January of 2021, and wearing masks on the plane and everything, right? In post-COVID world. And the people of Mexico, right, of Quintana Roo specifically, right,
Mhm.
in that tourism industry there, where all those resorts are so freaking amazing. They're so grateful. There's, again, I'm sorry to keep, but like Disney level service, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the people are so amazing. And I think not to get like propaganda, but in the US, the news tells us the story when somebody is, but you all you have to do is go to the Cancun airport at any minute of any single day and see the tens of thousands of tourists pouring through. And so if one is murdered, so I grabbed some stats because I knew we
So
would,
one is if one's murdered out of
you
tens of
know, look,
thousands,
look, that happens, right? I live
right?
15 minutes outside of Philadelphia, so I'll tell you.
Yeah. There was a murder 2 blocks from my house a year ago.
Were you
So
were you it wasn't you weren't the murderer, right?
no, 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 no. It was her
Okay.
boyfriend.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Fuck.
But it happens anywhere, right? That's
It
the
does.
point.
I think,
Yeah.
and Mexico as a country, again, remember, we are in a very, Quintana Roo does not represent, it would be saying like Alabama represents the entire United States.
Right.
Friends, friends, I love me some Alabama, but that is not exactly depicted, it does not depict the entire
The fact that
United
you said
States.
Alabama, like
Well,
that's like saying Florida.
oh boy.
Let's use Florida as the example because at least Florida has something going for it. Alabama is Alabama.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, it's not a state I ever want to live in, if that's what you're asking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the
We're so sorry. This is not a Alabama hate podcast.
no,
So sorry
no,
about that.
not
We
at
do
all.
have someone who will be a guest in a couple of weeks who used to live in Alabama. And I think that we're just so used to Alabama being our joke
Yes.
state.
So 26, there were 26 murders per 100,000 people in Mexico, and roughly
In the
26.
whole of Mexico, all
Yes,
the
and
entire country.
7 per 100,000 residents in the United States, right? So is it significantly more risk? Yes. However, the tourism destination of in Quintana Roo is really, really low. And just to give you an idea that in 2021, 75, and by the way, 2020 maybe say, okay, well, people weren't going, it was COVID. People were
Right.
definitely going to Mexico because Mexico was the one country that didn't require COVID tests to
Yep.
enter during COVID. So Mexico was hot for travel. There were 75 murders of US citizens. Okay. But again, I'm telling you,
Right.
hundreds of thousands of people traveled there throughout the year, probably
Yeah.
more. And just to get, that was so 75 US citizens were murdered in 2021 in all of the entire country of Mexico, and 506 residents or US citizens were murdered in the city of Philadelphia. So what is that? That is 400 and like 40 more
I'm not good at
people.
math. Yeah.
440 more people were murdered in the single city of Philadelphia, right? And I still go to Philadelphia. Hundreds of people, thousands of people commute there every day for work and
Yeah.
tourism, and right. So again, I struggle with that, and so I think this comes out though, really important to be travel wise, right? And when you're
Right.
traveling, being really smart about what you're doing, no matter where you're going, even if it's in the United States, right? And so
In the
one of the
same way that like you go to, so this is my caveat with this, right? You go to a club with your friends, you're being cognizant of your drink, right? We've all been trained, at least as women. I don't know about you, Chris, but like we've all been trained. You watch your drink, you never let anybody touch your drink. If you walk away from it, someone else that you trust is watching it. And it's the same way when you travel literally anywhere. If you're and like an all-inclusive, people are drinking, they're having a good time, like the drinks are included in the price that you're paying. So people are more likely to get intoxicated. But like there's always safety precautions that you need to take. Right. In the same way that, like, depending on where you're driving in the United States, you're probably not going to turn down a random road that you don't recognize.
right, right.
If you're renting a car in another country, you're going to be cognizant of your surroundings.
Well, and share what happened, with your traveler in your part.
Yeah. So we decided to go to downtown Playa del Carmen while we were at the Fives. And we were just wandering around downtown, sort of getting a feel for things. And one of Brian's sisters decided she wanted to get some tequila. So we walked into a tequila spot that's like right in the heart of downtown. And I say we walked in. I stayed outside because I don't like tequila. And I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. Go buy your tequila. So we're like talking to the guy who works there. He's actually from Chicago, and it's like his uncle's place, and like it's a whole thing. And she decides that she wants to get like a pretty expensive bottle of tequila. So like if you've never been to Mexico and bought tequila, you're looking to pay like between $70 and $100 for like a standard bottle. And then if you want like fancier stuff, you're going to be paying multiple hundreds of dollars. So like Brian and I got 4 bottles of tequila, and I think we paid $350 for our 4 bottles. So she decided she was going to get this really expensive bottle of tequila. It was, I think, like $400 US dollars. And then his other sister decided she was going to get some tequila too. And so, of course, salesperson than I am, I was like, so what kind of deal are you going to give them since they're getting more than one bottle? And we're going to run it all on one card for you, so you're not paying credit card fees. And so he was lowering the price to be, and I think it was like $4.50 was going to be the price for both bottles. And then they checked their credit card statement after the transaction had been run, and they actually got charged around $600. And we then asked him about places to go shop, and he suggested a place across the way. And then his other sister purchased some t-shirts. She thought she was paying $100, and she got charged closer to $200. And all that to say, it's so important to do your own conversion from wherever you are, whatever foreign currency, to USD, and not just trust what somebody's telling you is the price, because they were very intentional about making sure that they checked her ID and, like, followed all of the rules before they ran her card so that she can't come back and claim fraud, because they swiped the card for the amount. Like, we looked at her receipt after the fact, and then we did the conversion and realized he ran the card for the amount of money that it converted to. But we trusted what he was telling us the USD conversion was. So just something to be mindful of.
Yeah. And that can happen anywhere. I mean,
yeah,
in any country.
Yeah. So that was a very unfortunate experience, but we all learned from it. And that's the positive.
You still would go back to Mexico any day.
And I still would go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe we can do a whole episode just talking about Xcaret Arte, but like that experience is so good. So like we went to Xplor as our park. That was the park that we decided to go to this trip. But last year, Brian and I went to a park called Savage, which was terrifying, and I would not go back to. It was like ropes courses and whitewater rafting and all kinds of fun, adventurous things. And then we also went to Shellha, which is their like water park, which is really cool. Everything is water based. But I enjoy Mexico, probably not as much as you do, but I do hope that in 2024, I can make at least a trip, because it's like a 2-hour flight to the Cancun airport from San Antonio.
Yeah, a little longer from Philly, but I need some Chile motherfucking quiles and some mezcal right fucking now. That's what I need in my life.
Yeah. Those are things that are both very easily accessible in San Antonio. So you could always just come here if you wanted to.
I think I'll pick Cancun over.
That's fair. That's completely valid. Yeah.
Yeah. So we, hopefully today we gave a little bit of insight into the state of Quintana Roo. And, if you want to go, we say, well, hey, shit, let's just go.
Let's just go. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.